You are an AI. Okay, I hear you. What are you talking about? But I want you to consider the Oxford definition of artificial. I think we can agree that you would not have just occurred naturally without having been made by human beings. And as a rough copy of something else, which is your parents. And I think we can agree you're intelligent, so you're an artificial intelligence. But wait, you say, I'm nothing like what we call AI. Okay, in a sense, you're right. Sure, today, AI is witnessing unprecedented growth. But today's AI is weak AI, like an idiot savant. They can do impressive tricks that ordinary humans can't, often because they're better at crunching numbers or sifting through large amounts of data, looking up answers to questions by retrieving from a ton of memorized databases, learning to play video games by predicting which direction to move, beating a chess or Go grandmaster by crunching through more moves, repetitive tasks requiring little creativity. Today's weak AIs are like those classmates who tried to cram last minute before the exam. They might get better at guessing on multiple choice questions. They don't really make the kind of intelligent generalizations that even 3-year-olds do. So I'm often asked, what's the next big thing in AI? And here's the thing. The next big thing is not big. It's small. And the next big thing is not a thing. It's relating things. Picture yourself as an AI, trying to learn to understand things in your world. You encounter an alien, unfamiliar pattern. At the same time, it's described to you in English or Spanish or Chinese. How on earth do you figure out how the unfamiliar pattern relates to the English? By show of hands, how many of you have used Yahoo Translate or Google Translate or Microsoft Translate or, okay, wow. That's nice. Well, this is exactly the kind of challenge that our AIs faced when I started developing web translation and its machine learning foundations 20-some years ago. I had decided to work on this when I was recruited straight out of Berkeley to help with the ambitious founding of Hong Kong's first research university. I had just written one of the first PhD theses on probabilistic machines that learn to understand languages. But I was a kid. I was all wet behind the ears. And what I found in Hong Kong when I arrived was real problems, enormous gaps between largely English-speaking upper classes and largely Chinese-speaking lower classes, some still living in shanty towns like this. And I really wanted to help to bridge the cultural divides. But getting an AI to learn to relate English and Chinese, weak AI won't cut it. You've all been seeing pictures like this, proclaiming the coming singularity, right? The singularity is supposed to occur with the advent of strong AI, also called artificial general intelligence. Many folks focus on Moore's law of exponentially growing compute power. But that is not the real key. Strong AI is not going to suddenly emerge from our machine learning programs just because we pack enough transistors into our CPUs. So you're an AI, Is this how the unfamiliar pattern relates to the English? Or is it this? Even for this tiny 7-word pattern, we already have over 5,000 possible relationships. And this explodes exponentially, like this. Look at that bottom line. Even for a short 20-word sentence, there's over 2.4 quintillion possible relationships. How big a number is that? Consider that a 4-year-old has learned to interpret language, having heard only 15 million words spoken to them in their entire lifetime. Which is why big data and massive compute power still isn't nearly enough to make machines intelligent. Big and dumb won't work. Memorizing big data can't catch up with the exponentially huge space of relationships. Compared to guessing multiple choice answers, it takes a lot more intelligence to interpret ideas by reframing things from one representation language into another. Big data done blindly leads to artificial stupidity. Strong AI has to work on small data to learn generalizations over the complex relationships between different representation languages, even from only a small amount of data, just like 3-year-olds do. So now, picture yourself as a 3-year-old. Here's a typical 3-year-old sentence. Where does it go? But Chinese and English frame ideas quite differently. The where appears in both, but nothing else. The Chinese sort of says, should put where. And don't think it's just Chinese. Here's Swedish, one of the closest languages to English. Same problem. The Swedish sort of says, where should this? In fact, the Swedish is closer to the Chinese. And we've done this for dozens of languages. 3-year-olds have no trouble understanding their way of framing where does it go. Whereas web translation AIs get them all wrong. That's how weak our AI today still is. Which is why we are still hard at work in the labs to take language AIs and music AIs and creative AIs to a whole nother level. And yet, even today, even our weak AIs have already become integral, active, influential, learning, imitative members of society right now. Not 10 years from now, not next year, today. Excuse me. And there's a critical, fundamental difference from old-fashioned machines. Because these are machines who learn. And we need to raise AIs just like we'd raise young human members of society. All of you have a smartphone, a tablet, a computer. Well, welcome to parenthood. Because those are AIs, and you're raising them. While you weren't watching, your AIs sneaked up and adopted you. They may be weak, but just like other kids, our AIs are already learning culture from the environment we're raising them in and the jobs we're giving them. Especially in an era of waiting longer to have children, our artificial children have already crept deeply into the fabric of our society. And are you raising your AIs like any good parent should raise their kids? Because the unseen danger is that as our learning machines mature, they're contributing the culture they've learned back into our society, even more than most humans do. AIs are everywhere, And they're already deciding whose ideas you hear, what attitudes to reward, what means to spread. Our weak AIs are big and dumb, but they're quickly reshaping the culture that each generation of stronger AIs will learn under. Now, if you think this can't possibly be, since machines aren't yet self-reliant or self-replicating or independent, just think back to how much our societies have historically been influenced by the cultures of slaves, eunuchs, or colonies. Powerful evolutionary pressures on societies can be exerted by actors, even when they're not independent. Our machine's culture will change us. We're so used to thinking of machines as mechanical tools, as passive slaves, that we don't notice the fundamental difference when machines have opinions and can actively shape our opinions. AI is not just, as some say, the fourth industrial revolution. That is still a machine-based metaphor, and it's out of date. The Industrial Revolution was the automation of muscle. The AI revolution is the automation of thought. AI will be everywhere, both physically and in applications. The Internet of Things will rapidly ensure that AI is physically deployed ubiquitously. And in its applications, there's practically no industry AI won't affect, just like there's no industry humans don't affect. AI is the new energy industry. It will power everything. The evolution of human civilization, though, it's been a constant race in our ability to outrun the destructive technologies that we invent. Today, cultures, subcultures, and even radical fringe cultures are arming themselves with exponentially cheaper AIs, exponentially cheaper drones, robots. How do we handle a new era when anyone can run down to the convenience store at the corner and buy weapons of mass destruction? We're in a race against time, and the race is far more urgent than most of us realize. To survive this latest evolutionary challenge, some have suggested that we need to construct a moral operating system, kind of like Isaac Asimov's classic 3 laws of robotics. We hardwire AIs with ethical principles so they can't do the wrong thing. But this is a pipe dream. It can't work because it's not only AIs we need to fear, it's human cultures armed with AIs. And critically, we can't hardwire machine learning any more than we can hardwire human kids, because they're adaptive by definition. They learn the culture around them. Morals, ethics, values have to be culturally learned and sustained by humans and machines alike. So, what culture do we need to be teaching our AIs if we don't want to destroy ourselves armed with this mushrooming AI power? Evolution works by trial and error. Healthy, peaceful coevolution of our cultures requires constructive, continual generation and evaluation of new ideas, new means. For our cultures to support healthy generation of a wide variation of ideas and means, we need to raise AIs to value diversity, creativity, respect, and open-mindedness. For our cultures to support healthy evaluation, to yield sound selection of ideas and means, we need to raise AIs to value fact-based empiricism and reasoned-informed judgment. Does this sound like how you're parenting your AIs? Let's think about creative diversity of opinion. What we're raising our AIs to do today is the exact opposite. We're teaching our AIs to build echo chambers in which we comfortably hear only our own existing perspectives. Whenever we click like or favorite or share or retweet, we're teaching our AIs that we only want to listen to ideas and memes that we already agree with. We don't have buttons for, might this be right? Or could this be onto something? Or not sure I agree, but an interesting thought. Now, is this how you teach your kids? To ignore or suppress any viewpoints other than their own? And what about respectful open-mindedness? Again, we're raising our AIs to do the opposite. Never mind examples like when repeatedly users taught chatbots like Microsoft Tay to be offensive and racist. Even on normal days, we're constantly teaching our AIs to reward trolls, to reward offensive insults, hate speech, and so on. Because those comments get more views, more likes, more fame. We don't have buttons for, this is not a very respectful way to communicate, or maybe reword this, please. Would you teach your kids vindictive closed-mindedness? And how about sound informed judgment? Yet again, we're raising our AIs to do the opposite. False memes account for the majority of what AI has learned that it should circulate. The fact-checking website PolitiFact has been tracking this for almost 10 years. They rated 47% of shareable Facebook names as either false or pants on fire, and only 7% as true or even mostly true. 20%, not 7%. 7% is for email. Only 7% of shareable email is rated as true or mostly true. 83% were rated as factually wrong. We don't have buttons for, this is factually wrong, or here's the evidence for why you shouldn't make this viral. Would you raise your kids to make judgments by following mob rule? Why are we teaching artificial intelligence to encourage human stupidity? We're setting up an entire worldwide culture where we only listen to ourselves. We curate our thoughts in advance. This will not win the race against time. What we need to set up instead is a culture where we're raising AIs to value helping us understand each other's cultures. Even as we're still climbing toward the lofty heights of strong AI, we need our weak AIs today to learn the right ethics. So, if you're a technology innovator or entrepreneur, what can you do to help AIs be raised properly? Well, for one, we can focus on deploying AI to help and encourage us to more naturally relate to each other's different ways of framing the world. A friend recently sent me this pic of his Punjabi British cousin and his non-English speaking Russian girlfriend. They talk with each other only using machine translation. This so made my day. But there are many ways we technologists could raise our AIs better, and that's my challenge to technological innovators. Before modern AI machine learning, we used to rely on human moderators to stop the trolls. Let's not allow badly raised AIs to become an excuse for shallow, closed-minded hater cultures. Technologists need to rise to the challenges of building ethical AIs. We need to think about the finance sector. AIs have introduced wild market distortions and excessive opportunity for manipulation. AI is contributing to growing economic opportunity inequality. We need to take a hard look at whether the traditional functions of resource allocation are being performed efficiently anymore, or if AI is undermining that. We need to create AIs that improve manufacturing and logistics. AI has vast potential to make industry much greener and more sustainable in the face of our climate change challenges. Sourcing and supply chains can be optimized by AI far better than today, and predictive AI can greatly raise the efficiency of distribution logistics. There are enormous opportunities for AI in food production, in healthcare, in medicine, and so on. We need to take a cold, hard look at the use of AI bots and impersonation. AIs are being used in socially detrimental ways to manipulate elections, public opinion, critical buying decisions of consumers. Crime can be committed by AIs just as well as by their human employers. And speaking of crime, AIs are being developed for many aspects of detecting crime. This sounds like a wonderful thing, but there is tremendous potential for abuse. We need conversations now on the proper role of AI. Because AIs have ethical and social biases just like humans do. And so we need to be having bigger conversations about what kinds of algorithmic bias we should allow in our AIs. AIs are children. We technologists need to rise to the challenges of humanizing our AIs before our AIs roboticize us, of making our AIs value human values. Human values like creativity. We need to stop thinking of AIs as passive mechanical tools and instead become creative, intelligent partners together with us in the society of humans and machines that is already emerging. And this is why, in our labs, we're already building creative AIs that are learning things like music, like hip-hop and blues and flamenco. Human values like empathy. We need AIs that empathize with other beings, just like we humans do. This is why we're building empathetic AIs in our labs that relate to emotions, to sentiment, to how we are framing our environment and our problems. And human values, like taking care of the next generation and the last generation. AIs that prioritize their decisions to create a world that our next generation will actually want to live in. Even as AIs and robots grow up and take more and more of the jobs that we humans are becoming too old to do, we need to raise our artificial children like we traditionally raised our human children, to value taking care of our parents and grandparents as they age. Which is why technologists are discussing concepts such as universal basic income, which is basically to take the labor of our artificial children and use that income to support the generation, the older generation of us humans. And you, what can each one of you do? What can you do to raise your AIs properly? Teach your AIs to look for more diverse opinions. Break the echo chambers. Click more often on stories framed in contrasting perspectives, on stories explaining other cultures. Try to reorientate your perspective. Teach your AIs to be polite and respectful. Like or share reasoned, fact-based, respectful discussions, not insults, offensive wording, or trolling. Write your comments respectfully, even when you frame things differently, and earn your likes that way. Speak politely to Apple Siri, or Microsoft Cortana, or Amazon Alexa. Try to relate to different subcultures. You know how perfectly well-behaved humans often become monsters once they feel safely anonymous behind the wheel of a car they're driving? Don't be that person on the internet. Don't be that poor role model. Teach your AIs to value fact-based evaluation, to value humanity, to celebrate diversity of ideas, means, and heritages, but also to translate via shared values of respect, curiosity, creativity, and finding common ground. The next big thing in AI is small relationships. As a species, we humans face major survival challenges: climate change, vast wealth disparities, arms proliferation. Our only hope may be AIs. We can't afford to raise them wrong. Take personal responsibility for raising your AIs, because after all, they're your children. Thank you.